All right, I'm getting the nod. We'll open this regular meeting of the Pleasant View City Council this Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see a few people in our audience. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, opening prayer, reading, or expression of thought. Councilmember Gibson. The audience, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to serve the residents of Pleasant View this time. We're thankful for this land and this community that we live in. We ask you, Father, as we discuss matters of business, the city, that will do so with eye single to that thing that will help the residents of our city and be good for the future. We're thankful for our public works and for the first responders. We ask you to be with them, especially with our police department and fire department as they run towards those issues that happen. Be with them, bless them with health and strength that they can return to their families as well. Be with the leaders of our nation and help us to be worthy of goodness and blessings. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Thank you, Steve. I'll just remind everybody, we've had some not complaints, but concerns expressed from members that are trying to watch that they can't hear us. You make sure your microphones are on and kind of positioned toward you. That would really help. Item 1B, declarations of conflicts of interest. Anybody have any conflict?
No.
Okay, we'll move to 1C, public comments, questions from the mayor or council. Anybody from the public wish to address this?
Paul Pitcher, 743 West Fox, Silver Fox Meadows Drive. It's actually Fox. I am appreciative of the time and effort that you all, everyone included here, put in to our community. I've been dismayed with some of the mean-spirited comments and dialogue that has appeared in various places, and I think that's not the Pleasant View that I'm proud of. And it really irks me, actually. But I, for one, appreciate all that you do. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate positive feedback. Anybody else?
I also want to thank each of you for all that you do. You know, it is a pleasure living here, and I think sometimes, especially the garbage can thing, it's real easy to chime in on Facebook and everybody, you know, put their digs in. You know, I think they've got to understand too, there's only so much anybody can do. And we do appreciate you allocating the funds for the drain, the spring over 750 with the storm drain pipe. And the only other comment I'd like to make, you know, it's so cold outside that a lot of people farm outside. I mean, I don't want to go outside unless I have to. But with the police department, they've always been so good. And I'm just concerned with the spring coming up. I've got a lot of kids over there that we'll see out with scooters and motorcycles and things like that. And, you know, they're invincible because they're so big. And you just hate to see a tragedy happen over there. And I do appreciate it coming out in the Pleasant View City letter with the bill. Just a reminder of the parents, hopefully they read it, that, you know, they can't allow their kids to do this at this age or that age or whatever. But it's, for me, it's just a concern because they're just, you know, good kids, but they just don't watch. And, you know, and there's all over the road and that kind of thing. So maybe it's something you've already addressed and monitoring. It's spring and summer, but that's usually when they're at their height and that type of thing. But again, thank you for your time and your efforts, and look forward to resolution on this one.
Thank you. Just kind of to let you know, it is something we're trying to address. We're making sure our ordinances are in place but also we've asked our officers on the street, stop these kids, talk to them. There is gonna be some crackdown on helmets and some other things, but right now, it's not as bad right now. But you're right, it's coming pretty shortly. And, the police department has been proactive in trying to get out ahead on this, and will continue to be. Appreciate them. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, we welcome Kennedy from our youth city council. Glad to have you here. Did you have the opportunity to go down to the state capitol this last? Did you enjoy yourself? I was so sad that I couldn't go. Great. It's a good thing. Those that go, those that don't go are really missing out, but it's a good thing. Appreciate, Sarah and our recreation director Cindy and Amy for taking them down there, and
They do all the work.
yeah, well, thank you. all. You drove, didn't you, or did you just ride? No, okay. All righty. All right, so did you take the Bumblebee or whatever? Can I ever remember that? Bumpy?
Dimple.
Dimple, okay. The names are cars and I can never remember it, and I know it's something with a B. All right, thank you. It's good to have you here, Kennedy. Every so often, we get some youth council members in here. They come here into planning commission meetings, I believe, so too, they like to, in project meetings, that's right, thank you. All right, item 2 is minutes of January 14th, both open and 2 closed.
I have one comment from, just on
Okay.
the post, need a label, Bill was gone, Mayor Pro Tem, and then you were, Ann was vice in. I'll make that change.
Okay,
Mayor, I'll
Any
make a
other-
motion that we approve the consent items as stated, with the changes as stated.
I'll second the motion.
motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All voting yes. Thank you. All right, item 3 is public hearings and planning commission recommendations. Item 3A is a public hearing for rezone, consideration of a rezone for 18.44 acres of land located on the corner of 2700 North and US 89 from planned commercial C2 to mixed use West MUW ordinance 2025-1. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Yuri, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in a public hearing. I don't know it's this tag team, Amy and Tammy, or, okay, Tammy.
Okay, so this is a city-initiated proposal to do a zone change, as the mayor stated, from C2 commercial to mixed-use west. It is for the modification of 28 acres of land on the corner of 2700 North and Highway 89 on the southwest corner there. The
Okay,
proposed-
just a some clarification, yeah,
Oh, sorry, 18,
okay.
Yep.
Okay, I see, it's corrected from, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
The proposal is a proactive effort for the city to provide a variety of housing options through zoning modifications to allow for increased density, which is in an effort to meet the state's requirements on moderate income housing. The current zoning is C2, which is intended to consolidate the commercial zoning with to allow for full range of office, retail, service, and entertainment needs of the city. The proposed zone of mixed-use west would be specifically designed to allow both residential and non-residential components. This was presented to the planning commission on December 5th. And there were just a couple items of clarification that they wanted that we were able to provide. One was the planning commission asked for clarification of the density of the mixed west zone. And looking at the zone specifications, it calls for 20 units per acre with a minimum a limit of 20 units per acre with a minimum square footage of 900 square feet per unit of living space. Another item that they wanted clarification on was the percentage of the development as far as residential versus commercial. The discussion in planning commission was that it was 50%, but it's 25 residential, 75 commercial. And that can be done in increments throughout the stages of the development. The planning commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the city council for the zone change as it was presented with the clarifications.
Just to clarify, this is a zone we established, Sarah worked a lot on it with Amy in 3 years, 4 years ago.
Seemed like it was about,
Just after you got here, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe just some, for the audience and those viewing on TV, maybe a little bit about the percentage and how it's,
Sure.
you know, they're not gonna go in and just build apartments and
No,
walk
no.
away type. Yeah, anyway, just some
It-
clarification if you
It,
could.
it was to allow, you know, again, to address a housing component, but with some controls on there because we wanted primarily commercial. And so when you enter, you don't have to have housing, but if you choose to, if the development chooses to, then you have to enter in an agreement with the city. First, it does it in stages and you have to do 25% of your commercial first to get a housing bonus, you know, which is something like, I want to say 30 or 25% of that. And then, you know, the maximum commercial has to be completed 75% before you get all of your housing. And it spells out what that looks like with curb and gutter and infrastructure and all of that. So that the commercial component is there first primarily before you get your housing component. And we did do the square footage of, you know, the footprint to control what kind of, you know, housing you would get. And so it has a lot of, you know, checks and balances along the way so that the city gets the product that they need and want, and so does the person who's developing.
When we passed this 3 years ago, we wanted to ensure that somebody didn't come in with this zone, build residential, and then walk away and we have
Right.
residential but no commercial. That's not, the you know, the design of this is to get the commercial where we want it. And then back where, you know, some available property to put a housing component in, to use the commercial and to meet the goals that the city's established. So they did a lot of work on this zone. Appreciate that. And I think this is the first time we've used it, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is the first proposed application of the zone. But it was quite some of a process of
Yeah.
establishing the zone and there was a general plan amendment that actually went through to recommend the mixed use, and then this is the actual application of the zone. And it is kind of a process in accordance with the state processes and requirements on that. We have worked with the property owner and they're comfortable with this change. There are some possible development groups that have some efforts underway currently on the site. And then Tammy didn't mention, but I think we received one public comment and it's from the neighboring business, just with concerns with the housing because they have a current manufacturing operation and they may speak to that.
So just what we're trying to do is proactively, because she started out by saying this is city sponsored. You know, we've had people come in and look at this, and we want to be similar to what we did along 2700, proactive in getting the property to where it needs. So it's kind of like when somebody can get the UDOT approvals or get the design with the UDOT approvals that are in place. That's kind of been the stumbling block in the past, but we don't want to be the holdup. We want to be kind of like, okay, you're ready to, you know, start submitting plans and stuff. So that's kind of why we're at where we're at. So,
It actually helps benefit the developers, so one less step they have to go
Yeah.
through.
well, it helps benefits the developer, which benefits the city. So
Yeah.
makes it.
Both.
You know, we'll see what comes in and obviously all that stuff will come back to us. Any comments from the public? This is a public hearing. This state.
My name is
name.
Brandon Stevenson.
Thank you, Brad.
I'm representing J.M. Thomas Forest Products. That's the property that abuts it to the south. Also a resident, 3086 McIntosh. So, thank you for your service, by the way. Appreciate it. And, I can always appreciate a mixed use zone. Probably the only reason I'm here, the concern that, that we have regarding this mixed use zone is just simply that, there's a residential component and that in this specific scenario, it's placed abutting an industrial, right? Which, and I noticed when I read through, the zone, that there was no language in there that takes this into account. When I spoke with, Tammy, but I think it was Tammy that I spoke with, she gave me a lot of good information and indicated that typically they would deal with, those abutment issues and protectionary issues in, the development agreement with the developer that comes forward. And I think that's important, but I think, I guess my only recommendation would be that in developing, the zone, that there probably should be some language in there, especially if you're abutting residential up to an industrial zone, about what the developer is gonna have to do before they can create a development in that section. So, and I guess my concern is that we as the industrial individual, we've been there for 50, 60 years, and now all of a sudden we become the bad guy because we're just doing business the way we always do business. We're too loud, or we're too bright, or whatever the situation may be, because we're shining our lights in, somebody's windows, and we're waking them up at 6 o'clock in the morning because we're running chainsaws and heavy equipment and that sort of thing. So, I just think whether it's, however it is, we deal with it, I think, even if it's in the development agreement, that's good, but I think in the zone itself, maybe there needs to be some language that kind of discusses that and gives, the developer some idea of what they'll have to do or what will require of them in order to kind of protect the businesses that are there from becoming the bad guy. And that's really all that I had. Again, I appreciate your service, and I hope that it all works out. So,
Thanks. Thank you, Brian. I sometimes wonder, who want, because driven especially down 215 or whatever they call the name of it that goes
West Davis.
the parallel, what, no, the older one.
Legacy?
Legacy, thank you, Legacy. I'm like, who builds a house there, or whatever? And the same here, because I'm like, it's gonna be right next to the railroad tracks and next to industrial areas. The other side of the railroad tracks is all industrial also, and it's like, but I guess that's on two busy roads, yeah. But I guess there's a market for it. It's affordable housing that that's what people can afford. But yes, we'll certainly take those concerns into account. All righty, anybody else wish to speak to it? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Arrington, second by Yuri. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're closed. Thank you. Council, Vince,
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor.
go ahead, Steve.
And I appreciate what you're saying there. It's like, you build a house next to a cattle farm and then.
Or an Air Force base.
Or Air Force Base, and they don't let the flies, and so I think that's a very important aspect of that. But I look at all these apartment complexes that are being built right on the road, South Ogden, that apartment complex that's just right up by the hospital, that's right on 42nd or whatever that is.
The one
I think
across.
that is nuts. But, the railroad, the business has been, in our community for a long time. We do need to make sure that isn't affected. I think that's a very, when we passed the ordinance originally, we wanted to carve out a few places where we would allow more density. And this is one of those that we thought could be that mixed use, which is smart. I am not for apartments. Everybody knows that. I don't want apartments in Pleasant View necessarily. I look at 20 years down the road, what those apartments are gonna look like, and that's gonna be a place where our police department possibly is gonna be called, and so, but I know it's something we have to have, and not everybody wants to live in a half-acre lot anymore. this present picture there, he's such an old man, doesn't want to have a yard anymore, so he builds a very nice, place down there, and I appreciate that you stayed in Pleasant View. And we understand that the needs are there, and so these components are just part of our changing society. So I'm supportive of this mixed use aspect, but thank you, I didn't really think about that, about the businesses that are down there. Big Boys Toys or whatever, Young Power Sports now, that's,
And that,
those businesses are going to have to, they're there and they have some precedent, and so we cannot have, planks or something because they're there
Not
first,
against, yeah,
so I
against.
appreciate that. Thanks, Mayor.
I believe, and maybe you can do some research in that. I know there's some provisions in our code that when one certain type of zone butts another type of zone, because like in agricultural, you gotta put fence up and some things like that.
Yeah,
So
there's one with,
maybe you can research that, see.
yeah, I know that there's one with commercial too, because I've been recently looking at that with the
I
CP.
think there is, that you're required to put a
Two.
buffer.
But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to double check with the new zone. I don't know what
Okay.
language or
Well, we can do
provisions,
that
so
research,
we
yeah.
could do a
But I
little
doubt
bit
this is gonna have
research.
yards and things, it's gonna probably be more of a
Up.
up
Yeah.
going, and so that will mitigate
Well,
some of that.
It's a 90 square foot, it's more of a townhome, but I don't think they'll have yards.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, so I don't
Yeah.
think that'd be an issue, but I do want to make sure that we do cover the existing people that are there in those industrial areas.
Certainly.
So this zone also allows for kind of that look of like a commercial below and then apartments
Yeah,
above, right?
that's-
Like that you see in Salt Lake or Ogden, right? Same
Yes,
thing.
I believe so too. There's some provisions in the agreement that would allow that as well, still with that footprint.
I think, I like this point is valid. I also think that people who are building on, like you say, two main corridors,
Mhm.
realize that that's gonna be a noisy spot,
Yeah.
so. But
Well,
I agree with what's being said. but-
It'll be price driven for sure, Dave.
Yeah, I really appreciate Brandon bringing that to us because I agree with it. And it probably doesn't even say anything in the zone about protecting the resident against the or the commercial that's even in there, right? I mean, so in my mind, I think we need to address that before we go forward with the rezone.
Is-
In the zone
Is
itself.
that in the DRC though, when you have that discussion? I'm just curious at that level.
So, that's absolutely a consideration. So the next step from this, if approved, would be subdivision and then site
Which
plan.
we don't have yet.
Right,
Oh, but
This is
could that be
Cross Point.
addressed at that level as
It'll
well?
be
that
at
requirement?
the
and
development agreement.
yeah, because this is mixed use west, there would be a development agreement in play.
Which
If
we
the
have to
housing
approve.
component is desirable. And so with that, yes, it can be addressed, but if it, again, I'm happy to do some research and see if there's other elements of our code that might reflect. I mean, if there's a desired table, we could look at some ordinance tweaks to that.
Yeah, and we put that in the language, just curious though, that we can put that. in
Oh,
the language of the
yeah,
development
absolutely.
agreement, and
I
that's
think in the
solidified
development
there as
agreement,
well.
that could be
And that
addressed.
provides some flexibility that way.
But what would be in the development, a noise ordinance would be in the development?
No, so it
A
may be a barrier.
Okay,
noise
set,
barrier.
a set.
It's a sound barrier because it gets a little bit problematic when you put it in its own language because again, if this is applied in a different area. And so I think you could, but you have to be really careful. But in the development agreement, when you enter that, if you have that language, then it can be site specific.
Yeah, I mean, we have lighting restrictions and requirements in the zoning.
Yeah.
Zone, it says, up lights shall be used.
Sure.
No lights shall be used that are unnecessary for business. So in that same vein, if we're restricting lights in there, then we could require
could.
noise setbacks or whatever.
You could.
But I agree, it's hard to predict what it'll be.
Yeah.
What the
So we
development
get a
is.
site plan.
Yeah, but
How
the
close is
the
it?
issue is you're protecting the existing
Yes.
people from
Yeah.
what's coming. So it's not just light
Well, I think
and
both.
sound.
So you could.
I mean, we'll have this, those,
Doing both,
we'll,
but
You can
we'll
be
have
valid,
one
say
come in and
sound.
complain, but we'll have,
true, but the
Hundred of them
developer
in
has an
They're making too much
incentive. They have an incentive to take care of their own development.
Sure.
They don't have an incentive to
no, we
to
need to
protect
make
from the
sure
other.
both sides get protected though.
Yeah.
Not just one side. We protect the citizens,
Yeah.
protect the, those that
Well,
are
the
already
thing-
here in place.
But I would think we need to do that first before we rezone.
Well, I'm not sure how we'll do that because we don't know,
No, I don't think.
without it being site specific. I think that's
Or
why the development
changing
agreement's
this
the
area
best
to
place to
that
put
zone.
it.
So then
Just
could we
change it.
direct staff with a motion to make sure that that is
Yeah.
added to the, so we could direct staff with our motion to make sure that that language is added to the development agreement. It just,
But when with that comes, the development agreement comes forward, then we have that in.
It comes to
sure,
us.
but it's just another.
Don't we approve
notation
development
for the
agreement?
council
Yeah.
members
Yes,
and
yeah,
Especially commercial.
absolutely.
Right.
Council does.
It's just a, consideration of sensitivity.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve this, ordinance, 2025-1 as stated.
And I just, I guess, are we doing the discussion?
Well,
Second?
You second it?
Second.
Okay, I'll call for discussion. Okay, motion by Gibson, second by Nelson, discussion.
Only thing I'm gonna say is the ordinance does say the city may approve any design treatments that are determined by the city to meet the intent of this chapter and in keeping with the nature of the site and building uses. So, I mean, it's got a lot of leniency for the city there. Now, I understand if I was a citizen, I would want to see that codified, but
So it's broad enough that
But
it can still be
It's good that it's in
defined
the code,
during
because it needs to be in the
development
code for
review.
us to.
Certainly, to apply it through the code. And I guess just one thing and something I'd offer up of staff, you know, if helpful in the process, and obviously it doesn't guarantee anything, but, you know, we could reach out to the neighboring company and let them know kind of what we're looking at with solutions and kind of some of that as part of the dialogue, just kind of in fairness and
Once we get a.
yeah, once we get that, I think that would be a good,
And not just
collaborative.
this project, but any other too.
And these are gonna be limited sites. It's not like we're unleashing a great big.
No, there's only. a couple
right,
of
and
sites.
really, there's only a handful of areas where this could be
Yeah.
applied.
So
So
I-
it's not,
I-
Mixed use west is.
I think as
everything
long as
west
we're
of
aware of it, as it goes through the process, I think we can handle it okay. I think as those development agreements come forward, because it really won't be on them necessarily, it will just be protecting these other people. Again, you know, building that and then they build right next to a pig farm, or whatever it is. You know, the pig farm was there, the smells were there, and they buy it knowing that these things are, the lights, the noise.
yeah, in the beginning, but then you don't want 10 years down the road, the ordinance is to shift towards the residents and
right.
against the manufacturing. So you want that enshrined in the
So, anyway,
So,
my
yeah.
stand.
Do you want to add to that to modify it?
I don't think we can until we know what's going on, because we modify it to what? I think that has to come forward as we get a proposal forward, then we can,
Yeah, the
adjust
development
it.
agreement will come back to this body.
yeah, so we can handle that at a future time, if we do it, you know, that, and I.
That's like if.
But how can we set some rules unless we don't know? There's so much
Yeah.
unknown that we, to put language in that, because we're putting that language in specific to this particular business. And so
Well-
this zone is,
Well, particular type of business.
I don't think you have to write
yeah.
it that way.
But
well,
you could say nothing, no development herein shall be
affected.
interpreted to constrain the uses of neighboring zones as currently permitted at the time of development.
You could totally say that. That's what I was gonna say.
That's a really good.
Perfect.
No, but I think that's.
So say that again, can you say that again?
But my point is,
Okay.
the reason my second still stands, that's inherent, that's the way.
It is.
works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That doesn't need to be stated.
Well,
If I build
that-
next to a
yes.
commercial, my residential use never usurps the commercial use.
that's just understood with general land use law.
That's the way, so that's,
Yeah.
You feel good about keeping it as is? I think it's simple, it doesn't, we don't need.
Nothing we do can really prohibit all complaints anyway. It
No,
really
They'll start
can't.
complaining
It can be
about the
best
garbage
that we can.
cans, and then what are we gonna do?
I would imagine they're gonna complain about the railroad more than they're gonna complain about any other thing, so. You know, if something ever does come in there, we don't know. I mean,
I do like notifying, I love the idea of notifying as plans go through. though.
all right, I'm gonna call the vote. It's gonna be roll call. Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Marriott,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Yuri.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes, all voting yes. Item 3B, public hearing on zone text amendment, consideration of a petition for a zone text amendment to 13-16 of the municipal code to modify secondary water requirements for hillside developments, ordinance 2025-4. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
We'll make the motion to go to public hearing. Sorry.
They got it out first.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Nelson, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And this doesn't really, is this Tammy or Amy?
It's me,
Okay. Amy.
sorry, I got a power,
Oh, good. We just love PowerPoints.
you know, the
Wait.
mayor loves.
No.
Okay, so before you this evening is a proposal regarding a secondary water ordinance. Just a little bit of background on this item. So our city code currently prohibits development without connection to a secondary water source. The city administration, the mayor and I were presented with some concerns with the ability to develop in areas where there are no known plans and a possible inability to connect to secondary water. And in kind of talking through this, we offered to evaluate and present an option, an ordinance for consideration that would allow an exemption in conditions where secondary water is inaccessible. And the existing ordinance was last updated in 92. So the provisions within the current ordinance include that mandatory connections are available. Owners of residential or agricultural properties with access to secondary water system must connect to it for irrigation purposes. It prohibits irrigation systems to be installed mixing with culinary pipes, which is very good to protect our culinary supply. And also has restriction on culinary use for irrigation. So using city-provided culinary water for irrigation is prohibited. If the property can be served by a secondary water system, there are a few grandfathered areas that exist based on a 1992 timeline and prior agreements with the city. And building permit conditions, building permits for new lots will only be issued when secondary water is available, with exception for prior agreements with the city. So in looking at this, just kind of evaluating some possible options or amendments if this is something that the city wanted to consider. This isn't a firm recommendation, but rather it's an option to evaluate and consider. So maintaining the existing language with added clarity, special considerations and exemptions. So looking at exemptions from secondary water system connection through a development agreement for properties that may utilize private water rights that are determined and maintained as adequate for installed landscaping, or properties that implement and maintain a natural scape design and landscaping elements that require no or outdoor watering. And the provisions on this, property seeking an exemption would be required to submit a detailed landscaping plan to the city planning showing the entire area being developed and maintained as natural scape or zero scape, and would require city council approval. And then failure to comply with an approved plan may result in nullification of approved plan or agreement, and violations. So utilization of the city's water supply, the culinary water supply for secondary, includes in our code that can result in a Class B misdemeanor. It's not a joking matter. So Planning Commission reviewed this item and provided a recommendation, and unanimously recommended denial. There were a couple of concerns expressed, one of which was the infrastructure lines not maintaining a contiguous connection to a secondary water system. And so you allow some exceptions here and there, and then there's not a full connection system to continue to have the connection to, and then you're really kind of ending the connection to secondary. And then application of Utah code in future years, there's requirements to secure secondary water connectivity. In looking at that a little bit more in depth, there are options to utilize our culinary supply to do that, but again, the city set a policy to not use currently culinary supply to do that. So with that, just some further considerations, some advantages, disadvantages. So some advantages with looking at approval of the ordinance, development of lands without secondary water access. Currently, this is either cost prohibitive or even just service prohibitive because they can't get access to the services. Natural scape and zero scape create less impact regarding infrastructure and water use in sensitive lands. The kind of one of the main items that come forward is up in the sensitive lands. We have seen this, however, in some of the commercial properties that we've dealt with. And promoting water conservation by encouraging and providing for less outdoor water use. and relieving, the primary and secondary system of additional demand, pressure adjustments, finite resources type of thing. Some of the disadvantages associated with this, are enforcement of our city ordinances, protection of the city's culinary water supply. Enforcement's always a challenge, and whether or not people would actually maintain the xeriscape, or if a new owner came in, if they tried to install and utilize, the internal culinary supply, long-term application of standards, maintenance of attractive natural scape. Any landscaping requires maintenance. That's regardless of whether it's xeriscape, natural scape, it just does inherently. Secondary infrastructure availability becomes more limited, with later addition of this being expensive and difficult to require without city investment. And so if we allow certain properties to skip, then in order to reconnect later down the line, the city may need to then investment there. And long-term dedicated secondary connections provide non-potable water for landscaping, reducing strain on systems. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions for me. That has pretty much kind of a.
Was there a specific zone or an area that this was kind of,
So the
set
emphasis
to?
was kind of in our sensitive land, so the hillside. So there's areas above 4,300 that cannot currently be serviced by Pine View.
you
And,
mentioned?
and are not in their plans to ever service, I'd add.
Currently, yeah.
And then you mentioned that there were private water rights.
Mm-hmm.
What's an example of that would exist in that?
So
area.
there may be individuals that have wells, ditches or canals on site. They may own some water shares that currently our ordinance precludes their ability to utilize those for landscaping. They are required to have access to a secondary connection.
And in our, water policies, we do require, if you have a private system, to turn it over to the city. We don't allow people to use their private wells. Is that correct?
And that's not-
It's kind of,
Try to propose.
We try to,
Oppose them, so if somebody tries to drill one with their water right, your culinary code would ask the city to oppose that but you're
Yeah.
following the water right process set up by the state,
Yeah.
so.
Because of
State.
contamination of the culinary water?
So every well is considered a contamination point in your source protection zones, and
Okay.
just
Before we
for,
get too far along, let me ask if there's any members of the public that wish to address this.
Justin Uri, I live at 930 West, 3550 North Pleasant View. I have lots of questions about this. It looks like this was based on a petition. This was not something that the council came up with. This proposed ordinance came up because someone petitioned for this ordinance change. Is that correct? And do I understand that right?
That's partially correct. We started talking about this back when, in the lower area, in the commercial area, they talked about restricted, came about, first started talking about it in the drought years. So you gotta go back 3 years to the drought years. We started kind of talking about it, and the other water provider started restricting what our commercial can and can't put in. We started talking about what our long-term type thing is. Then that kind of got out a little bit. And so, yes, we did have during the last year, somebody come and say, hey, where are you at on that?
Okay, so an individual petitioned for a change to this ordinance. Yes,
not a formal
Not a
petition.
form.
not a formal petition.
No,
So this was, in other words, they didn't approach the council for this.
no.
This was just a private conversation with someone, and asking.
The conversation was basically, yes, we're looking at that, we're considering that. What we're considering is something along the lines of what they've done, it's been mentioned in council meeting before, what they're doing in southern Utah, especially up near Ivans, development up there where you go out there and there's just every natural scape right up to the foundation. There's no watering, it's just They got a lot of land out there. I don't know if they don't have the water or don't have the infrastructure, but the bottom line is there's multi-million-dollar homes out in the middle of the desert with natural scapes. So
Right.
that came to this, and that's where it's like, well, when are you gonna do something? So I don't know.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but, so yeah, there is not a formal application, formal petition, or anything like that.
Okay, so a couple questions, looking at the proposed, at the draft ordinance. Is there a legal definition for natural scape and xeriscape? Is there a legally enforceable definition for that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of definitions in the ordinance. Or I don't, are you okay, Mayor, if I respond?
Sure.
Sorry. Okay. So it about what's included in the landscaping plan. And I guess the central definition would probably be in 13, 16, 15B. And it says properties that implement and maintain a natural scape design and landscaping elements which require no outdoor watering is one of the definitions. The other definition would be to utilize existing private water rights. But then that properties in the exemption would be required to submit a landscaping plan showing the different types of vegetation that will be utilized in the placement of those. And that there would be a maintenance plan to ensure minimal water use, soil preparation and mulching, and how that would promote the water retention and plant health and water conservation
So
features and practices.
it is, in other words, are you just reading from chapter 13, 16?
I'm reading from the proposed language, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
but I mean, is there like, with the state, or even within the city, is there a legally enforceable definition of xeriscaping or?
So this
natural?
would be the closest that we'd have available is what's included.
Because
in
what
the
I'm
ordinance.
reading here is that you are going to require people to have natural scape or xeriscape. I see no legal definition within this proposed, ordinance.
In our ordinances,
I think the best
long as it
definition is
does
B.
not
It says,
require-
yeah, which require no outdoor watering.
And I
So
think
it'd have to
that's
be
drought
A
a
resistant.
plant, yeah.
That would be enforcing it, no longer. no-
So they'd have to submit the plant types and in order to confirm that it's
So
a
later down
natural.
here you have native or drought resistant species, an irrigation plan, if they, so they have to either, they can use their own water rights, or they have to have plants that use this
No outdoor,
xeriscape, that meet that xeriscape definition.
Mhm.
And they have to show that they have proper mulching techniques. The big question that I have about that is who inspects this? I don't see a mechanism for, it says the plan has to be reviewed by the council and approved. Once that approval takes place,
be the code enforcement
who
officer.
inspects that? How often? Is there a mechanism? Is there anything in this code that says it will have to be, because there is a phrase here that says must maintain. So that implies that someone has to keep checking this. What is the time period that this person must keep going? What is there something that has to get, there's no language in here that said, okay, this has to be reviewed every year, every 2 years, every 5 years, to see if they're still in compliance?
You're correct. I think the enforcement is one of the challenges I brought up. I think that there's really not a timestamp mechanism, but I would say with most of our ordinances, enforcement is kind of the challenge.
Well, and I wanted to bring up that too, because I don't think the city has a stellar record of enforcement.
Well,
I
it's
know,
not
I
enough
have,
on us. We don't have enough staff.
I have neighbors who, a pool house that is big enough to fit my house in. It's a pool house. And they were able to get away with having a pool for a couple of years without a fence around it because it was improperly inspected. I could go on and on. There are people there's someone on 1000, on 1000 West that appears to have built a shed in the property behind them that's as big as the house.
Mayor, I'd like to call a time for public comment.
Yeah, enforcement's an issue in any ordinance. certainly assume that this enforcement's gonna be an issue.
I think one thing in, public needs to know is, you know, Justin's right. We have a track record, and as we propose this, we did, you know, and I don't mind calling out the areas. There's an area that's 1992, that's Pole Patch, clear up on the hill. And, the other areas just below them where they started out using their own system and then turned to culinary water when it didn't, but you know, they put in full yards, and it's kind of a different thing we're looking at here. One of the tools we will use to monitor it on a monthly basis will be water usage, culinary water usage. We do monitor that. And, you know, if it's a new system, I assume it will be automated. And
Yeah.
so it would report. Yeah, I mean, 100, right, we have been burned, and so we were very, very careful in trying to put this together so we don't get burned again.
Okay,
And I don't think anybody's done anything malicious up there. It's just that was what their needs are, and misunderstanding and so on, so we want to avoid the misunderstandings and
yeah,
stuff. But Councilmember Gibson's right, your time is up. I usually only give you 3 minutes, and I just was listening to you. So I'll give you one final point.
What about land is bought or sold? What if I have a plan, a landscaping plan on file with the city? I sell that land, I forget to tell the new owner that I have this landscaping plan, they come in and.
Is it
tear up
possible to
the
put a
plan.
deed restriction on the plat?
And
Of
that's not
restriction.
something that's currently in the ordinance language. That's something we'd need to check with legal on and kind of evaluate.
We could certainly look at that.
Well, generally site plan runs with the land, so it's just same as the height restrictions on my home run with the land. Even if I sell it to somebody else, they can't build upon it.
Last thing, with respect, Amy mentioned that, the Class B misdemeanor is no joking matter. I looked up, it kind of is. It's 6 months in jail or $1,000. The 6 months in jail is serious. I can't picture anybody going, sending someone to jail for growing the wrong plants or using the wrong water supply. So you're left with $1,000 fine? I mean, that's a, you know what, 4 or 5 trips to Costco. nowadays,
So I
right?
think he raises a good point, and I think what
So,
we need to,
I
what we,
think the enforcement mechanism.
we need to look at maybe in that is
I don't even-
each day or each whatever separate offense. Does that make sense?
Whatever.
So,
Yeah, stackable.
Depending on the day.
stackable offenses.
Are we, sorry?
Yeah,
still
any other
public
public wish to address? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
comment? Motion to close public.
Second.
Motion by Nelson, second by Arrington. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, back to the council.
Just my comment, I didn't know this was coming forward. I was in the last meeting, but my impression of the city is that there's not a overwhelming desire to develop the northwest hillside of the city. And so I'm wondering why, I think I'm the most pro-development member of the council by far, but even I'm kind of questioning why we would move forward without requiring a connection to secondary. I don't know that there's a compelling need for that. And
Well, I would agree with you, is this best practices for the entire city, and it's coming before the city council pending council approval, so it's on a case-by-case basis, but we just had a gentleman come in and talk about changing our future land use map for almost 200 acres above 4300 north that doesn't currently have secondary water connections.
Yeah.
Are we willing to allow him the same privileges as the single landowner? And if not, why? I mean, it shouldn't be based on, I understand, you know, people have a right to petition their government, but we've had a longstanding policy because of moratorium, second, you know, driest state in the nation, all of these things that secondary water is important, and
But,
there is
but that's
legislation
a good
coming.
point. And I think that's
Okay.
what the driving force behind this was. He asked about the petition, and I said, no, we started talking about this when we were approached with the other water company that said, hey, we're not, you got to limit, instead of requiring 15%
Sure, well, as far
We're
as the
gonna
landscaping
limit
is
you to, you know, and that
Yeah,
kind
but
of stuff. So
secondary
that got us thinking, it's like, what are we going to do? Of course, this was drought years.
Yeah.
We had the last
Okay.
2 years that weren't drought year. I'm gonna guess this year's gonna be a drought year.
Yeah,
okay?
but treated water is extremely expensive and
So we gotta kind of look forward to, well, water is at as a premium, so, you know, and I don't care whatever, I'm not arguing for or against this. And maybe a better thing would be to say like, you know, say, okay, in the A5 or the A2 and greater, it's, or whatever, or limit it to this, you know, where there will absolutely never be any,
but we don't know that forever. So
well,
and just one last note,
not.
we look at during planning commissions, the state is moving towards requiring all new development to have a secondary water connection. So,
But that's going to get changed because it's gonna be a secondary water instead of a culinary water connection. This isn't saying that, this is saying we're going to accept this person's own water rights as a secondary water system, not a pressurized water.
Yeah, which.
They don't want cities using culinary water, so we're kind of comparing apples to oranges here. We're saying, we understand, we're not going to let you use our culinary water system. But we will allow you to use your water that you have rights to, that, you know, to do a minimum amount of landscape. But you're not going to use our culinary water
Yes,
system.
no, I understand that. I just,
We're gonna say your water
We'll have
system is a secondary water
connectivity,
system.
that was another thing with planning commission, if you have little spots here and there that break off the connectivity for secondary water, and then it increases the cost for other people who live behind that home or to the side of that home or whatever.
Well,
else.
either
So,
be a future developer or Pineview itself, if they ever decide to put in a system up there. Right now, they have absolutely no plans to put in a system up there.
well, I don't think it's a good policy for the city.
Yeah,
so.
Mary,
Steve?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
So, you know, I think we maybe need to define secondary water system versus Pine View. When we think of when we think of a secondary water system, we automatically think of Pine View. So, I- or Bona Vista, whatever it is. But, I mean, I'm absolutely not going to vote for this because, I'm gonna not deny it because we've been burned, you know, even before, and this is back to, you know, your days or, you know, when you were a kid or something. When Pole Patch, you know, was put in and we have no control over that. We put water restrictions, we charge them a higher tier rate and they just pay it. And, you know, some of those, it's supposed to be half acre site on that 5 acre piece and the houses are,
Quarter an acre,
Quarter
and they have like.
and
a
so
quarter.
that's just absolutely, we cannot get into that. And they have to have, so anyway, I would put forward the staff to put some ordinance that says it has to be a secondary water system. If they have something or a way of doing it, I don't care, as long as it's separate and it's a system, a pressurized system that they can use. If Pineview doesn't want to do it,
Find that then for all of the city of what counts.
well, that's fine, but for this particular thing, I wanted to,
Well-
because it's not,
I think if we put together something like Steve's talking about, we still want to say if
no,
a system's not available.
yeah.
Yeah,
If,
so
if,
how it's proposed.
yeah, I
really.
just absolutely, I mean, it's absolutely not, it's been a standard standalone, that's the process, the requirement to have a secondary water system. Even if you xeriscape, there's still gonna be trees, bushes, things that need to be watered. And those are gonna be used, you know, in Ivans or those places, that's all culinary water is used to do that. And we do not have any excess water.
No.
I even question, you know, the ability to have culinary water up in some of these places. It's gonna make a major,
Can
it-
use the culinary water we got.
it's a major infrastructure problem for those developers to put water up there. And they're gonna have to do that in order to bring forth some proposal. And so secondary is gonna have to be part of that, in my opinion. So I don't know, are you ready for a motion, Mayor? or-
Okay, wait, I want to talk first.
Well, we still allow discussion, but.
Okay. Well, I guess, you know, I understand what everybody's saying here, but I am thinking of like a resident or landowner that has water rights. And we're saying to them, you can't develop because you can't connect to you. But if you have water rights, why can't you develop if you've got water rights and you're not gonna use culinary?
But where's those water rights coming from? Is that a
And how
stream?
do we make sure
Is
that
it a well? I mean, if you have water rights, you have to have access to some water.
Well, and then
Yeah.
isn't,
Yeah, so define the secondary water. I mean, that,
but I believe in
This-
this ordinance, hang on one second. But I believe here it says it still has to come for us to determine if the secondary water right is going to be applicable.
But we still need of what counts, because again, you've got other people. If it's a case by case, then that's not equal as far as we're being given preference to one over another. We don't even have a chart that says what counts as these things.
See, not necessarily though, like I know I have a resident friend in Pleasant View. She has a well. She waters her yard with her well water.
Was that before the
And-
ordinance was made though?
This ordinance is in place.
No, the
Oh,
ordinance that we currently have
Have-
does require
she legally is using it, so I guess it would be.
I guess
like-
if it's her water right, she can use it.
It's her water
for
right,
whatever she
right?
wants. That's the thing.
Exactly. So I
fine.
guess, I don't,
well,
I feel like we're kind of puffing people who have water and saying, you can't use it, sorry, you can't cook
Yes,
fine
not
here.
quite.
can I address that end though? That developer, I'm using the particular one, and you were not here, but he said he had water rights in North Ogden Canal Company. That doesn't do any good up on the hill.
Right,
There's no way I mean, if he can get that water that he's got in the North Ogden Canal Company up to
Up there.
there, fine. But it's like me buying a carbon credit, which is baloney. You know, I'm gonna offset my carbon credits, I'm gonna buy something here, and then I'm gonna fly my plane. That's nonsense speak. And so, that's if she has a well that's pumping out water, artesian well,
right,
yeah, let her use it on her property, I don't care.
right. So,
So she has water right to that, but that's different than a developer that's putting in a subdivision that doesn't have Pine View and wants to build those lots without secondary water, whether it be Pine View, whether it be his own. Again, that's what he said. I've got North Ogden Canal Company water.
that he's trading to Pine. View.
right,
And it's trading to Pine View, but Pine View has to be able to utilize that
That's last meeting.
up on the
But,
property.
yeah.
So that's different than what's in this ordinance, I think.
This is.
So I'm gonna Mayor, I'm gonna make a motion that we deny this. I just think it's full of holes and I don't think it's good for Pleasant View.
So just really define what holes it is so we can address that. Like,
Well,
We
there
don't know.
has to be a system of some sort. Again, if it's water rights, fine. Show
We
me
need to
that, show
define what
me
those
that
are,
it can be used
define what
on
secondary
that piece of property up there.
And-
You can have a storage tank where it's put into where there's a separate connection to some secondary water, wherever he's getting it from. I mean, he can pipe, Marriott did a bunch of stuff on the North Ogden side. He had water coming out of the mountain,
But we
build a
need to
reservoir,
Of what counts.
and that's
as
not,
secondary, so
that's
it's
not Pine
specific to the
View.
site. We need to say what counts.
That's not Pine View, that's, Marriott's own subdivision. He has water
mhm,
to put in the system that's not culinary. There has to be a separate thing from culinary to, again, I don't care if it's
Agreed.
Pine View,
right,
but have it be something else that they have that's sustainable, that's,
So we need to
not-
define what is.
well,
I don't know that we
Sustainable.
can define, like, how do you know if it's gonna be Marriott's or North Ogden, or it's
No,
gonna be
but
Wells?
it's secondary water. It's secondary water.
We need to have that because it can't be a case by case because that's not right for somebody to come in and say, I've got this, and we say, okay, you can. Then the next person comes in and we say, we don't like that, no, you can't. We need to have a chart that says this counts as.
This opens up too much gray area that it needs to be black and white. You have secondary water and you have culinary water.
We need to define what secondary water is.
That's what I mean.
So maybe put that as a staff recommendation, because again, I don't care where they're getting the secondary water, but it needs to be a separate system. They can use
That we are.
they can use their North Ogden Canal water, trade it to Pine View. And then what? So Pine View, before they can have a subdivision up there, they've got to have, before those houses are built or occupied, they got to be able to turn the spigot on and have secondary water. And they might be limited. They can use Zeroscape. I don't care. And it might be limited, but it has to be separate. It cannot be culinary water. It's the only source of water for there.
Yeah.
It can't.
So
be.
then
No, I agree-
I
agree
would
with that.
second Steve's motion with the addition of directing staff to come with recommendations of what counts or define what secondary water uses are acceptable in our city.
I will not, my motion is that we deny it, and then I make a staff recommendation that they revisit it, but I don't want that to be part of my motion. I'm just denying this flat
You
out.
don't want them to come back with.
They can do whatever they want, but part of my motion is to deny this.
Well, I was seconding your motion.
Perfect,
to
but then
deny.
you said with the caveat to add to my motion.
No, not caveats.
And I'm not saying that I
I
am not putting that part of my motion. My motion is to deny.
I'll second that. I just wanted a directive for them to come back with information.
You can do whatever you want, but not part of my motion.
Well, I don't know when this will come back, what, what's driving it. It's, again, this started in drought here. It's because when we're in drought, we're scrambling to find ways to be creative, and then the drought goes away, and then we're like, yeah, we got tons of water. Then the drought's gonna come back, and then we're all getting, when I say we, I mean the entire state of Utah is doing that. Yeah, I'm fine, whatever. Like I said, I have no skin in the game here. It's just that we were trying to be creative at how to allow development for people that have water rights, water that they're actually using. The person that came forward has water that he's using to irrigate his alfalfa. And he doesn't want to keep, he's probably gonna put a house up there and just wants to keep irrigating alfalfa around. And it's like, but I can't build up there because it's like, well, that is the problem. So, but anyway, well, we can revisit it. Amy, you're not gonna revisit it, okay?
I'm not planning on it.
But we as an administration going forward, we'll revisit and address some of these concerns. So I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I do think it's a priority for our staff, first of all, either, right? It's, the developers can come to the table with this, when they're ready, it's a problem they need to help solve in the future, so. My first opinion is the staff doesn't need to be worrying about it right now.
Well, and I agree, but what I wanted to do is before people show up with their proposals is to have, and obviously what we're lacking is some definition here and it was kind of implied that, yeah, this is a secondary system that is not a pressurized secondary system. They're still not going to be used culinary water, but we can work on it and totally make it very, very explicit.
Yeah, and you'd want to have conditions that once secondary water is available, that just like we did septic systems before plumbing, before we got the sewer system to the house and the sewer gets there, you have to put in the sewer.
How do we enforce that though? I'm just curious, when it becomes available, how do we go?
Same way we did.
Sure, hey, now you have to hook in.
Yeah,
You
same
can
way
tell-
we did sewer.
You just identify them during your project, and so like one of our next sewer projects has, I think it's 3, that'll trigger that.
You give
Code.
notice and,
Yes, it's
and
got
then
rules.
this is
It's-
how many days you have to comply and what if they don't?
Then
Both
there's
the city and the
follow-up
health department
actions.
will be on top of
Yes.
it. Because that's a
I
health
was just
department
curious how that
review.
works. I didn't know
All
how
right.
that works.
And the last, sorry, I know we belabored this, last thing I want to say is, I do agree we need to work with, I mean, if I'm a farmer who's got alfalfa up there, I know what my farmer friends do with their water shares, is they run the water until they use their entire water share, because the state will reallocate your share based on usage. And so, we're not saving water by not allowing him to develop up there. He can just flood his fields an extra 2 or 3 times as he wants to, and it'll use 10 years worth of zero escape watering. So I think we need to work with them, but we just need to define the terms.
To define it better. Okay, so I have a motion to deny. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Items 3C, public hearing for CPUD overlay zone. Consideration of a proposal to apply commercial plan unit development zone as an overlay zone to commercial C2 zones. Ordinance 2025-5. I'd entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
By Yuri, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor, did we do a roll call on that last one, or do we?
No, I don't think we, unless it's for the ordinance, right?
It's
Yeah.
denied. Oh,
Yeah, we
oh,
denied
if you
it.
adopt it,
Okay,
you have to
right,
do a roll call.
Okay,
Thank you,
sorry,
Dave.
Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, before you this evening is consideration of a proposal to apply a new, overlay zone, our commercial planned unit development, CPUD zone, for our C2 and CP2 zones. And the ordinance is, included in your packet. So, this is an amendment to our zoning map and creating an overlay over these. This zone was created, if you may recall, because of some of our commercial growing pains. So we've had a couple of developments come into play, some of which we've utilized, CPUD, type tool. But it's difficult without having a refined tool in place with the application of that, and we found that, so that's why we developed and put that ordinance in place. But the other part of that is it really allows for some cohesion in the developments that occur. And so the examples I'd have is, we have the Bailey 2700 project and the Rush Funplex, and those are both utilizing the PUD type model. So it's a planned unit development. Our setback standards, some of our frontage standards are modified based on the cohesion of what's on the site and developed within. One challenge that we found in another commercial development, which we're working with, and I think it's working just fine and it's okay, but over by the Jimmy John's and the Dutch Bros, each of those units is coming independent and separate, and it's hard to have shared parking. And there's a lot of requirements for shared parking agreements, shared access agreements. I mean, it just makes it a lot more cumbersome and complex in actually implementing the standards. We still have a lot of raw commercial land, and so having this in place would provide some good mechanisms. And it's not a mandatory thing, but it's an optional thing to come before and with a development agreement type thing to have those modifications to some of those standards in order to have that cohesion in the development.
Planning Commission recommendation?
Oh, Planning Commission recommendation is approval, and that was unanimous. Thanks, Mayor.
Any members of the public wish to address this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
Motion to go out of public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Nelson, second by Arrington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Discussion?
I'm a fan of these.
Okay. No discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the CPUD overlay zone, which is ordinance 2025-5.
Second that motion.
Okay, motion by Nelson, second by Uri. Further discussion? Roll call vote. Arrington.
Yes.
Gibson. Yes. Marriott.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Uri.
Yes.
Motion carries, all voting yes. Thank you. Item 4 is subdivision final acceptance. Discussion and possible action to consider final
Thanks, guys.
granting final acceptance of Heart of Pool Patch Phase 2 and end the guarantee period. Sorry, jet lag still.
Donnie, isn't that where you live, Article Patch?
It's phase one, right?
Oh, not
Are
in
you
phase
phase
3.
one?
He's phase 3.
You're phase 3.
All right. Tammy.
Okay. Well, as the mayor said, we're just looking to consider final acceptance of part of Pool Patch 2. We have checked the fees that have been owed and then believe that they are all taken care of. All the fees are paid, so
Final inspection's been done and
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
and
left.
included in your packet is the statement from Jones and Associates showing inspection results.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we grant final acceptance of Hartlepool Patch Phase 2.
Second.
motion by Arrington, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5A, Zone 1 Water Tank. Discussion and possible action to approve property acquisition located at approximately 4,000 north, 1,500 west for the Zone 1 water tank in the amount of $432,011 plus replacement of fencing. Tyson.
So speaking of getting water up the side of a mountain, this is the Zone 1 water tank. We met in mitigation, or mediation, sorry, and came to the resolution between us and the property owner that we felt comfortable presenting you with this amount. And the fencing will be with during the construction process, even for our own security needs. So we didn't feel that that was overreaching for them to ask for as we cross, I believe it's 2 fence lines. So we don't interfere with what they're still trying to do on the property to reach the site.
So just to clarify, then this is for property acquisition for us to put a water tank on it?
Correct,
And this, it's this amount plus fencing.
yes.
Restore the fence.
So yes, the fencing amount, we would need to address in the project bidding.
Yeah.
So I don't have that total. It should be pretty minimal, a couple gates and probably just some readjusting depending on the type of fencing heat we're matching up with, because we're gonna do our standard anywhere we remove fence.
So he's not asking for additional fencing money, it's just in the agreement with, in the memorandum of
property.
understanding that we're gonna give you this amount for the land, and when we do the project, we'll replace the fencing.
Yes, that we
How much
manage.
property are we acquiring?
So this gets us a little over 2, if including easements, and 2 acres. So this was met between what our appraisals came in at and theirs, and an average that we felt comfortable with during those
Okay.
discussions.
Considering a half acre lot up on the hillside goes for 240,000, for 2 acres, this is pretty good deal.
So they went through the
It's not the
appraisal
best, though.
process,
No,
and
but
we used
still.
that as part of that negotiation.
This is what the mediation.
Half
came
acre
up
lots
with.
are
So
like
is there
240.
budget item for this that we,
So there is already pre-existing budgeted funds, and this is below that budgeted number.
what was the budgeted number?
For the total amount, we're in the
It's like
3 point
over-
something mil. We're a little over on what we anticipated for the land specifically. We were
gonna
at
have
300,
enough to Complete the
Three-
tank.
but the project as a whole, depending on what size of tank we end up building to meet the Weaver Basin rules and that agreement, we anticipate you're gonna have an amendment at some point to address that.
Or more.
Once we
But
go
there-
into
there was
design.
There was a line item for
Yeah.
the land and we're over that at this point. I mean, I guess,
No, we're within it
We're within.
right now.
So you're,
for the whole
you're
project.
over the individual land item.
Oh, okay.
the line item that's in there,
Yes.
yes.
So and then,
So-
sorry, one more thing, just help me understand. So do we have a well that we're already, and we're putting the water into this tank, or what's the?
So this was a 2016 project with the booster
Predates.
station down, it's actually located in Harrisville. And so what it's doing is your bottom zone, essentially below Pleasant View Drive, across east to west is zone 1. So this tank is essentially a float for that pump. So right now, we're running inefficiently by running it off demand. So as usage drops, the pump rate drops, it affects the other system where it's tied in with Bona Vista and Weaver Basin, because their well outmatches what we can take ever. So they have to coordinate between those 2 entities if we were operating in that circumstance, because if you have an event or high usage, car washes booming, summertime, and you're ramping up to the max allowable gallons and then plummeting to
Mhm.
50, then that's just messes up a
So
water
Tyson-
system.
Do you mind clarifying, because you said we'd need to come back forward with another budget amendment. I guess I was under the impression that overall we were below budget. Is that?
So just on the whole Zone 1 tank project as a whole.
So the whole project, we're coming in lower than what was budgeted, but for this property specific, it's coming in higher. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I would anticipate changes in, so we had 300,000 in the land,
Well,
all estimates.
part of the problem was.
Yeah.
The figures that were put together a few years ago.
Yes,
Yeah, we're just about,
Yeah.
I
Well-
think the tank was required to be finished in
Yeah,
5 years.
there is we've already entered into a contract with Weaver Basin, and they've been very patient with us to kick it down. I mean, I think we were supposed to do it within 2 years,
3 years.
3 years.
So I have a
it was 5
Five.
from
It was 5.
2016.
Okay.
So
So,
we've been asking for sort of a
Exception.
variance.
Yeah.
so for all these years, for the last, 8 years, whatever, we have owned a pump station off for Weaver Basin or Bona Vista Water. We have a pipe coming up to 2,700, and it is actually piped in, I think, to the,
Zone.
that zone one,
Yeah.
but we never turned it on. I don't know.
We did, we ran it,
Once,
we
maybe twice.
operated it for around a year.
But it's just been a pump coming in.
Yeah.
Into the system. You can't do that. Electricity, just so, and we knew that we had to have a tank somewhere up to be able to gravity feed that zone one.
Yeah.
And so we've been paying, 200,000, whatever a year for water that we're really not using. And
This
so.
was part of the original agreement.
Yeah,
too.
so we have to do
Yes.
this, and I mean, Tyson is, and we've talked about this for quite a long time to get this done. And this piece of property is where the tank's gonna go, and then also access off of Pleasant View Drive. To go up through for, not only for access and for the pipe. Gives us an easement to go through that, which is, I mean, we have to do it. We're so far along. And it's just, it came at a time when we needed water. And we were told that we didn't have enough, and then, anyways, it's
Yeah,
kind of.
The
I think get this.
very first item.
But it will be beneficial for future development because it'll free up water above.
So this, and this is the last piece, and so now we'd anticipate we'll start
And,
going
and,
into
and,
design.
and we do not have money to build the tank. That'll have to be a bond, something, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, we don't have money for that, correct? I mean,
So that's where we're looking at some different options with the requirement for the sizing of the tank. But it's pretty uncommon to build anything less than 1 million-gallon tank. But there are options, but you end up with dual tanks which isn't ideal for maintenance, but looking at those options to try to balance, okay, are we not shooting ourselves in the foot for the future, but coming in fiscally responsible for right now? And so some of those options we will look at. So it's hard to give a number because, yeah, you can build a 600,000 now, but Pleasant View already has overcapacity for what's required for storage. That's part of looking at getting rid of the 500 West tank because you have so much maintenance needs. It's a point of contamination, and so generally you're
Anyway,
trying to
that
reduce
steps
those
a little
levels.
bit in the future, not very far in the future. We're gonna
No.
start As soon as we get,
This
we've
is
been
an
working on
important
this
step,
property
yeah.
acquisition for a day or two, so, yes.
That's okay. So obviously, we have the money for the tank and stuff, but that doesn't include the infrastructure to get the water up, does it?
we don't have money for the tank.
Well, no.
So-
To build the tank that
We-
he was
we-
talking about.
No,
So
we
part
don't
of
have
the-
money to get the tank, to build the tank.
So part of the total
Always good
was
to
we're doing phase
Oh,
one
that's right.
currently. That was approved.
Does that
uh,
include the infrastructure too then when we bond?
So the 4 mil is getting into the estimate, including the infrastructure to get to the
Okay.
tank. Yes, so that's talking about your
We're.
tanks and the infrastructure to get up there, build the road, fix the fences. That's what you would cover with that additional funding.
That we don't have.
And
Right.
So we have money to buy land, which I think we need to.
Step one, okay.
Yes.
Thanks for going into some details there.
We
Are
did.
you ready for a motion?
It was in the council packet last week. I was gonna have Amy, maybe Amy could show us on GeoGizmo, but
Where the
at least
location
know
is.
where it is
Yeah.
and then the.
If some council people would.
I do
hear the
have
council
my
meeting.
exhibit. If anybody wants to see it, I have my exhibit. To clarify for Amy, who's gone now, I did misspeak at one point and thought I had a different number for the land item in my head and said I felt that this was under.
We still got some other property. It's a great value. It's the right.
We have to.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the property acquisition located at 4,000 North, 1,500 West for the Zone 1 water tank, an amount of $432,011.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Arrington, second by Yuri. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, all voting aye. 5B, Skyline Drive, discussion possible action to approve property acquisition located at 4300 North, 500 West for Skyline Drive in the amount of $16,400. Tyson.
So to keep the Skyline Drive right-of-way acquisition moving, this is, excuse me, this is the next property. They have it coded 219. This is the top of 500 West, 4300 North side. And it's in the total amount 16,400. And this is our PUE and the right-of-way to continue that project. So we're again following WACOG. This is the follow-up to the JCs from the last council meetings. This one's accepted, and so this will be the next step to move forward and start those closing processes.
And these are WACOG funds.
Yes,
Yes.
This one's right next to Loveland Park?
this one is,
This one is.
yes. On the north side of 4300.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept, that we award this amount in, item number 5B.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, all voting aye. Item 6, award the bid. Discussion possible action to the geotechnical investigations of the banks of Barker Family Pond Project to Terracon in the amount of $29,350. Tyson.
So during, we have the Barker Park, or not the Barker Park, Barker Family Pond Storm Drain Project that's currently underway. So while we were designing that, we found that we could essentially get a significant amount of capacity. But because of the timing for this geotech, when we designed the box, you'd push us into the higher laws of the dam rules, which requires additional everything. So talking to another entity that's sort of interested in looking into getting that additional funding to help the flooding downstream for other Weber County residents. They inquired and had interest in it. So we moved forward. We requested bids from the geotechs to evaluate the banks of the pond. So currently, the structure we hurried and redesigned, knocked down the overflow capacity, but in a manner that we can add stop logs to meet the full capacity if the banks would allow. So we stay in the lower dam limits where you don't have as much flooding issues or concerns.
How much would it raise the capacity? Would double it or?
It was, you were pushing somewhere in the 20 acre feet. It's significant. It was enough that's, I guess, why that other entities are interested in as well.
Yeah, that was my question on that is why would there's no benefit to Pleasant View to raise it, right?
It is, it's part of, so we're moving our impact project from, I think it was the one we talked about with the Tinas property. It's been talked about on Shady Lane to try to address our impact needs as well. So moving our impact needs to that pond because it's all just straight downstream from those locations. So it was a current impact
So
project.
in fact, I know they can't pay for geotechnical stuff. But can they pay for improvements and stuff or make? impact
So anything gets us into capacity to try to move those ponds down should be impact eligible. And we do have an amount that we're trying to spend down so we don't have to give those funds back. So this was the quickest way of attaching it to a current project. Terracon came in, they were the highest, but we felt that it met the needs to meet those future dam limits if you're gonna get into that extensive of a capacity increase and not create flooding or water issues through the banks in the future. So we could be ahead of that.
Barker family, so they, I mean, it's good, you'd have to increase the bank size all the way around the whole,
So that,
2,700.
yeah, we just don't know,
I know where it is, yeah.
even speaking to the family, we can't get information on how those banks were built. And then UDOT came in and cut the south side off and
Yeah.
did the adjustments that we're fixing, and so there's no info, and the west side is the lowest side of the pond.
Can we
So we could,
dredge that at all, or?
I was just wondering, can you increase it without adding? You're just trying to see if the walls are good right now, adequate for what, can't increase above what we have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're maintaining what it's historically been running at. We just have a mechanism that it take operators an hour if you addressed all your bank and the concerns, that you would just go pull the stop logs
And raise it.
and it would raise.
So, yeah, it's not gonna cost us any more money right now to adjust the outflow to it, right? Because
Nope.
you've accommodated that
It was
already.
already dealt with in the structure itself.
But
so
we
this
just
is
don't
just-
know if the walls can handle the water if we raise it. That's what the study is gonna tell us.
Yes, so this will tell us how feasible it is to gain that additional acre feet. If it's something, or even correct issues with what we're dealing with now. So there's some limit of the water level that's
Some
exceeding
point.
that bank, and then to the west will be lower. And it is something that's worrisome just as a whole, that you have that large of a pond that you really don't know anything about the bank side. So the information in the short term for the city's use, for storm drain use is still, you're gonna get that out of this and know that you have either one, issues we need to address, or potentially gain capacity for us in the future and those other entities to deal with your flooding down
Yeah, I
27.
like that. I mean, the other entities, can they pay for it? I mean, we pay for it up front, but if it's not.
So there were reimbursement discussions, but trying to get them out here, none of those are secured by any means, and that's where it's, whether they end up helping us improve the pond to gain that extra, but that'll be agreements and a much larger process, and we're just not there currently.
Yeah, that was just my point of like, is there any benefit to us? And sounds like there's some benefit to us.
Yeah.
Eric, can I ask a question? Sure. Is there you say this is the most expensive of the options, I can't see a breakdown of the different, am I missing that?
They're individually, if you look at the bottom of Jones's record, or the recommendation of award, the last paragraph kind of explains why this one as opposed to the others.
So when we did the geotech for our little station out here on 600 and Pleasant View Drive, we did the same structured test over there, didn't we?
No, so this.
We did do the same thing, I mean, they bored and.
No, so this one you're asking to meet the dam safety and deal with
So we
some of
didn't,
those items.
we didn't have that be a dam safety issue.
Oh, okay.
That one doesn't meet it's not.
There's more water in that thing sometimes than there is in Barker Pond, isn't there?
No.
Depth wise?
No, not for the fact. It's based off of acre feet.
Alright.
Steve, I'm disappointed.
We're waiting for a joke.
I'm expecting for another damn.
Well, I would say, I'd say a darn study, but
He loves studies.
I just hate studies, but I definitely, we need to work, cause the head gate for
I'm
this.
just saying, I need an expert witness. Good catch.
Me too.
Look at that.
It seems like a lot of $30,000 to drill some holes, it just seems a lot of money.
I want to be an expert witness.
And the report that you're you're gonna use to design backup. Cause some of that's what you're gonna be required to give to the dam safety when you get your permitting and.
Yeah, you're paying for an opinion letter, basically, right?
Yeah.
They're assuming the liability of their, so you're paying for them to.
Anyway, I mean, we need it as part of our stormwater. I know, I get that, but I don't know. This seems like a lot, but if,
Doesn't the North Ogden Canal Company put water in the pools?
we take it out, we put it in and then take it out. At 1,000 West.
So that's one of our turnouts that's talked about in that agreement for dumping out of 400.
How many outs do we have? I know we have the big one off the canal. That goes into that Parker Pond, doesn't it? And then,
Yeah, and so we've been, I guess, reevaluating what we're calling outfalls, but yeah, you're probably thinking of the 3-4 main. The main outfalls. So yeah, Barker Park, you're
Okay.
dumping out the multi-sport, that's the next one, and to get the water.
but that's not affecting Barker Pond, but because that, I know in our big, 100-year storms that come every 3 months here, or they used to,
Okay.
so this year. We are limited how much we can put in, and then we're, holding it back, we're retaining it, and then letting it go the outflow, and then we flood far west.
Correct.
So is this going to,
Or cause problem.
those 2 acre, how many more acres are we gonna have? 2 acre feet, or whatever
I
it
don't have
is?
the exact number.
Is that
It's
really-
Considerable.
Does that really help? We've lessened the city park now because of our pickleball stuff.
Well,
We've
we
lessened-
have to
going
put
out
somewhere,
1,000.
like say, like he was
We're not
telling
to
you,
expend
we
that.
had a pond designed for, not designed, but on the master plan for the lower part of Tina's property. And instead of doing that, we decided that was possibly good property in the future. We'd route out
that
and
to
improve this part.
Are we still gonna do something over by Pepsi plant? Are we gonna do anything? Cause that we talked
Yeah.
about doing a
Yeah.
Yes.
detention pond
For
there.
that
something
other-
like-
Yeah.
But I know that's the water that's further
Yeah, that
west,
would help.
west or
the-
south, where Mayor,
This
whichever
is
way we go.
more north. Yeah, yeah, west, south, northeast, whatever. Adjacent to the highway
All
that's
right.
running strange.
By the pickleball, we're gonna have to.
Don't say we're gonna have to expand that. No, don't say that.
Yes.
Don't say that.
Yes, we're gonna have to. No, we have to, that's what I said.
What? That's another touch. We don't.
We're not going
Ann,
there.
I love you. You know
We're
that.
not going there.
But we're not talking.
Well, for-
I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to award the geotechnical investigations of the dam banks of Barker Family Farm Project to Terracon in the amount of $29,350.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by
That-
Arrington, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, other business. Who should we start with? Tyson, you got any other stuff? You kind of monopolized the floor here the last.
You talk a lot.
Oh, I love talking. That's one of my biggest problems. So, big announcement.
What?
Bob Schreiber, after
Oh, wow.
36 years of service to Pleasant View City and Pleasant View City alone,
Wow.
is retiring. So his last day's February the 28th.
You're gonna have a partay?
Yes, we will set something up and we're just trying to coordinate so some family can be there and
I think we should.
Put him on a mower and send him down the road.
No, we should do something for Bob. He's been here for a long time. That's cool. You know what?
I think the mowers cost more. You might not want to part with them. We do have some push ones now that you say it.
Yeah, we can paint it gold. and-
Yeah, we got their gold spray paint from the last shovel break-in and we can make it something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big moment. Obviously, I started under Bob, but I think my first time was 16 or 17 for a summer, so,
Couple years.
yeah, it's a few years ago.
That's
So-
crazy.
Yeah, it's
Now here's a speed. bump.
exciting for him. He seems to be getting happier by the minute, so, which is always nice to see. And then we're working through some staff shifts. And I think we've got the people that we currently have and have them places that they will excel and hopefully keep moving us forward, and we'll start working on the missing positions now more.
Thank you. Stetson, what you got for us?
So I have some good news. Big announcement with us as well. Lance Donaldson, after 15 years of working here, he's gonna retire. His last day is Thursday. We have a little get together for him here on Thursday from 3 to 5. I invite you to come and tell him thanks and send him on his way. The other thing is we're excited to, we have a new officer coming back. He has 16 years experience. He's coming back. He starts Friday. So we're excited about that. The other thing I want to share tonight that I'm really excited to share, we had and the reason I'm sharing this is, you know, we either participate in or pay into a lot of task force throughout the county, the homicide task force, the SWAT team, the strike force, the gang units. You know, we either participate in those or we pay into those. We had a case here recently that family left town for the weekend and came home, and their house had been burglarized, and during that, $100,000 ring was stolen. Luckily, with the help of these task forces that we pay into and that, they played an essential role. Last Friday, we got that ring back to the family. And so pretty excited. And the reason I share that, the case is still ongoing, so I can't share a lot of details with it, but those task forces played a vital role in us getting that back for them. Obviously, there's been an arrest made, but we'll continue on with the case. It's still ongoing and under investigation, but like I said, I share that because I know that every budget has that in it, things we pay for, and I'm really excited to share that they really helped us on that case. So it's awesome. Other than that, we're just getting along, doing good.
How many officers we feel short?
With this one coming on, I think we're down to, so
Oh, so.
doing
that's
better.
Than it was.
Yep.
One coming back, was he a recent employee?
Yep. Yeah, he left, Dwayne Arbogast.
Oh, yes. it's coming back.
Yep. So we're excited to have him back, and, so he's a great officer, got 16 or 17 years of
He
experience.
took the grass on the other side, it wasn't quite as good as.
I didn't get into that with,
All
as soon
right.
as he said, I'm willing to come back, I was excited to bring it back, so.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Amy,
I don't have any items, thank you.
wow. Laura? Everything okay?
You sure?
Yeah, things are good.
You know, she's not gonna be here much longer, but I still.
Yeah, that's true.
I still gotta give her a bad time. That is my job. And so.
My job is to give you a bad
I
time.
don't have anything.
Yeah, the only thing I have is just wanna just mention that that ground is settling beautifully down there at Pleasant View Park. So,
That's great.
And she would like the heat turned up next
I'd like to-
meeting.
No, it's.
Okay, Sarah?
Just, you already mentioned it, but the U City Council had a really good experience down at the day at the legislature. Representative Brian Wilcox met with us for quite a long time. And
Always been good to take good care of our
yes,
kids.
and we did our typical go to his office and talk about his legislation, and he scared the heck out of the kids. No, it was good, and the kids learned a lot, so it was a good experience. So.
I have a granddaughter that attended, and she had a blast.
Good, good.
She wished I would have been there, but she still had a good time.
It was a good
Glad she went,
experience, so.
but I'm glad she had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Couple things. One of them, status of the website. Maybe Amy, I don't know if you can tell us if there's what's happened since we last talked, and is that moving forward?
Yeah, so last council meeting, the contract was awarded for that. We've been in open communication with the contractor. I believe Laurie sent them our signed, version of the agreement, so they were gonna get that back. And I received a notification, to begin, coordinating with an individual, so I'm gonna ask, Heather to help with that coordination.
Awesome.
And, the anticipation is we should have that online in the next 7 months, which I know seems like it's really far out, but really, they're gonna do a really nice job and it's
We're
gonna
excited
be
for
wonderful.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
that's
good.
good to hear. I mean, just wanted to have some continuity and that's good to have Heather probably lead. That's great. I just have concern as of late, lots of employees leaving and we've had that happen over the last year, right? And so I don't know if there's something we can do there right now to, I think a majority of is salary related, I think, and when we're talking especially Public Works and Police Department, but and we've been down multiple people for the whole year. I don't know, I'm just wondering if we ought to consider a retention type bonus or something for our employees out of that budget that we've been using to, or we haven't been using, I guess, to maybe enhance, kind of keep people from looking for a minute. I don't know, just a thought. I don't know if it's something.
No, I think that's good.
You'd like us to work on putting something together for a retention bonus for?
Yeah, I don't have anything in mind, but
First,
but I-
we'd identify what funds are available.
Yeah, what's-
that kind of
I
stuff.
would agree with them.
The
so,
unused
yeah.
money. that
we
we've
have a
already
budget for
allocated.
wages for the year. We haven't been using all that and
Let's do it.
Okay.
I think
We
there's
will look
an
at it.
opportunity to look
Come
at
back
that.
with it.
Okay. And then, yeah, I guess that's all I have.
That's a really good point.
Steve?
I know you and I have talked about council assignments. Are those
Okay.
going to be the same? I just, if they are, I'd like to, Founder's Day is coming up. And I'd like to, sometime in February, start kind of calling that together. So if I'm still that, great. If not, what's your thoughts on?
I'd like to make a motion.
I think, my plan was just to keep them the same.
Let's do it. Let's keep
It's
them.
not-
Well, no,
We
no,
gotta
make a
save
motion.
players, and I think everybody does a great
Make a
job of what they're
motion.
doing.
Steve,
I was
I'll
put my
second
name in the
it.
hat to run it.
If you
Steve,
like
wanna
to,
do
that's
it.
fine. No, I mean,
Steve, we're waiting to
Well,
report to you. Come on.
I just, I mean,
No, and
did a
that's
good
the
job,
question
Steve.
I had was, did we talk
great
about it
job.
last meeting and,
We did
and,
No.
and did we talk about Founder's Day at all? So,
No,
so,
no, we
thank you
haven't.
for bringing it up and
Anna and I did.
I think
so-
we're, I
Yeah,
think
we did.
we're good.
Yeah.
I do know that I'm gonna
Already
need,
on the water slide. Everything.
we did assign or we did talk about a couple, I'll refresh it to go over, the compensation plan that we told you we'd work on for the next budget, which is kind of separate from what you're talking about.
Formula
Yeah.
things,
And,
Well, compensation, we've been looking at employee laterals and even a recruitment bonus type
Yeah.
program. And so I think
All agree,
initially we
yep.
had, Dave and Steve involved, for that. I don't know if that's.
A
still-
general plan update. I'd love to be involved, since we're gonna do that.
Okay.
well, anyway, I just, I think everything's working
so yeah, if
quite
you can
well.
start organizing what you need to.
But I
that'd be
just,
great.
we generally,
great job.
February, 1st of March, we have a kind of kickoff meeting, get everybody on the same page. And it, it's not so much me, I mean, everybody, and I want to make that public, everybody has their expertise and does a great job.
I will still
at
say,
everything.
we are, people, other mayors are just like, how do you do it? How do you get your council? And I'm like, I don't get them to do anything. They just do,
Well,
I get out of their way and I
They
stand and say
volunteer.
hello to people and everybody does their thing.
Founder's Day is
But they-
almost as good as the 4th of July for me. I love it. I love
So it's actually noticed. Okay.
Yeah, I think-
what
anyway.
you guys all do is.
But if
noticed
that's,
and
if that's
appreciated.
good, then I will assume that.
It's June 28th. Next year's the 175th. Is
Yeah.
that right? I thought it was.
Next
this
year, 2026.
175th year
'Next year
of,
of the founding of Pleasant.
What's
wow,
the date of it?
June 28th.
28th.
fourth Saturday in June. Oh, I didn't realize that's that many years.
Yeah.
No wonder why we got that.
Okay,
problem.
anything else, Steve? Okay, so you'll be putting together something, I guess, in the next.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now I have a question. I don't know. I don't know what you guys did. I did these calendar invites and I show basically a calendar invite for city council meeting every week for the next.
I know, Tammy did that,
Tammy did? I sent some out.
or something.
I
Did we
show
have
it
one
every
last week?
single week.
All of a sudden, I got a bunch and then
Yeah.
she canceled them. It
Oh,
was
maybe
funny.
Tammy maybe Tammy was trying to put them
So
on. her
let's talk
calendar.
about February to now and we'll get the rest cleaned up. So I assume our plan, I think our plan, so Steve's, I'm gonna be gone the 25th, you're gonna be gone the 25th.
Yeah, we can't. February.
I'm also.
No, no, but let-
You're gone too?
The
So
fourth,
are we meeting the 18th?
if needed.
I'm here.
If needed, okay. So the 11th and then maybe the 18th. Okay,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
gonna do that.
Okay, so the fourth is not one,
No,
No.
not next week.
but I show it, it's.
Good.
Yeah, it looks like Tammy
good.
must have, I put it on the shared calendar and she must have accidentally
Yeah, it says
changed something,
ten.
cause
Happy and it says repeats weekly.
It's so, I kept getting these things and then
So we
she
need to-
canceled
Okay,
them.
I'll
I
talk.
do love some calendar.
Fourth,
invites, I like
So-
it.
I know, I did them, but I
You-
didn't wanna do it with my calendar.
11th and 18th.
And 8th only if we need it.
Yeah, Laurie, can you, I mean, I know we had that, but can you maybe give us that, because we had several that we'd taken off of the calendar.
You know what, I just have it on the board, let me just make a copy for
Let's make a copy for everybody, so. Because we went through that, Mayor, and we tried to avoid all the
Yeah,
meetings
well-
we should.
Yeah,
like-
you're gonna be in Germany in what month?
Yeah, I'm missing the fourth, second one in February and April.
April.
What's the April one?
We're in Germany, here you go.
I should be here. I'm not leaving
Southern
till April
Thank
10th.
you, Sue. By the way,
Thank
those
you,
cookies
Sue.
you brought in that one day were like phenomenal.
Hey,
You wanna
Sue-
send a recipe?
Sue, did
It'll
you
be
get my
April.
text?
April 8th and 22nd, right?
Yeah, that's good, 'cause I'm gone the 20, or I'm gone the 15th, so 22nd.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, everybody, for, business as usual. I'll accept that. It was like something fell apart while I was gone, and I don't know.
Yeah, it did.
More,
Or at least you need to.
I remember you saying that when you were first.
Am I
Every
getting
time you leave
looks?
town, something
Don't look at me
happens.
that way.
I'm gone for what, 2 days and all
No
of a sudden I'm
chocolate for
getting.
you. I'm with them.
Hey, I'm upholding my 2-month notice. That's pretty big.
Yeah, that is big.
If,
All right.
if we are forming a committee for that, I would like to be part of that.
She's got it.
Oh, there's a schedule. We're gonna push that out probably tomorrow. the
I
next
could
day.
email it tonight. Yeah,
Okay.
if there's any questions or comments or try to engage everybody on it. So
what's the schedule? What are you talking about?
for the hire for the new
It's
administrator.
got dates of when the applications are due. Wait, there they are. They've been canceled. Okay. All right,
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you're in.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Make sure you turn in your closed minutes meeting.
Are we doing a closed meeting?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we need a close? I kind of skipped over A.
You-
Sorry, we're adjourned. Too late.